pause and bow our heads for the doxology, to be followed by the singing of the Philippine national anthem.
Who am I that the Lord of all the earth would care to know my name, would care to feel my hurt? Who am I that the bright and morning star would choose to light the way for my ever-wandering heart? Not because of who I am, but because of what you've done. Not because of what I've done, but because of who you are. I am a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow. A wave tossed in the ocean, a vapor in the wind. Still you hear me when I'm falling. Lord, you catch me when I'm falling. And you told me who I am. I am yours. Let the eyes that see my sin would look at me with love and watch me rise again. Who am I that the voice that come to see would call out through the rain and calm the storm in me? Not because of who I am, but because of what you've done. Not because of what I've done, but because of who you are. I am a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow. A wave tossed in the ocean, a vapor in the wind. Still you hear me when I'm calling. Will you catch me when I'm falling? And you've told me who I am. I am yours. Not because of who I am, but because of what you've done. Not because of what I've done, but because of who you are. I am a flower quickly fading, here today and gone tomorrow. A wave tossed in the ocean, a vapor in the wind. Still you hear me when I'm calling. Lord, you catch me when I'm falling. And you told me who I am. I am yours. I am yours.
Mga kababayan, ang pambansang awit ng Pilipinas. Kayang magiliw, nagsasilananan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y bumay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting,
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our MC for the 72nd online inaugural meeting and induction of the 2021 Board of Governors of the Management Association of the Philippines, the President and CEO of John Clements Consultants Inc., Ms. Carol Dominguez.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back emceeing, but this time virtually, standing on 4 blocks of my yoga props with my new Brio Logitech camera and my green screen. I almost put together a CNN newsroom since we're going to be in this situation for a while. I figured I should be prepared. It is my privilege to MC for the second time this very, very important Management Association of the Philippines event. On behalf of the MAP, I welcome all of you to this 72nd MAP inaugural meeting and induction of the 2021 Board of Governors. We will now proceed to the recognition of outgoing MAP governors, the roles they played during their term as MAP governors will be flashed on the screen so I don't have to read them. May I call on our outgoing President Francis Lim and our incoming President Gigi Montinola to please join the photo opportunity for the virtual recognition. May I ask each governor to turn on their videos as his or her name is called. Thank you, Francis and Gigi. May I now call on Attorney Dick Du Baladad, founding partner and CEO of Du Baladad and Associates, BDB Law. Thank you, Dick. Next is JP Orbeta, Managing Director, CHRO, and Group Head for Corporate Resources of Ayala Corporation. Thank you, JP. Next is Dr. Tito Ortiz, Vice Chair of Union Bank of the Philippines. Thank you, Tito. And last but not the least, Governor Sai Tetanco. Thank you, Governor Sai. At this point, may I request the outgoing governors to turn on their videos for the group picture. A warm round of applause, please, to our outgoing governors. Thank you, Dick, JP, Tito, and Governor Sai. Our outgoing president will now deliver his farewell speech. May I call on Attorney Francis Lim.
Thank you very much, Carol. Secretary Sunny Dominguez, friends from the government, the diplomatic community, the civil society, the academia, and the media, 2020 and 2021 governors, fellow MAP members, guests, ladies and gentlemen, Happy New Year and good afternoon to all of you. It has been my honor and privilege to have served as the 71st president of this prestigious organization. Thank you very much for your trust and confidence. I will not bore you with a detailed report, as I've already presented the report on my presidency in our last GMM. Besides, our secretariat has uploaded a copy of the report in our website. Feel free to go over it. The pandemic had made 2020 a challenging and tough year. But with a firm resolve to work hand in hand, our organization had not only successfully navigated its waves of uncertainty, but had performed beyond expectations. The MAP continues to be the association of choice of the Philippine business community. We inducted 108 new members and increased our membership to 1,060 despite the pandemic. We vigorously conducted activities and introduced new programs for the benefit of our members and our countrymen. Not only have we kept our organization financially afloat, but we ended the year with around 280% higher in net income, all-time high cash position, and all-time assets. More importantly, we have shown that the MAP truly cares for society through our various donations to our less fortunate brothers and sisters. We have likewise helped influence and shape national policy through our positions and recommendations on various issues. As some have aptly observed, the MAP is a force to reckon with in the business community. But none of what we had accomplished last year would have been possible without the dedication and hard work of all the chairs, vice chairs, and members of the various committees. I would like to reiterate my profuse thanks to the Secretariat, led by our very own Arnold Salvador, for going beyond the call of duty to make our programs and projects under our lead agenda happen amidst the pandemic. Let me express my profuse gratitude to all of you, our members, for your support and dedication throughout my term. I would like to extend my special appreciation to the 2020 MAP Board of Governors and Officers, namely Gigi Montenola as Vice President, Dick Dubalada as Treasurer, Noel Bonoan as Assistant Treasurer, JP Orbeta as Corporate Secretary, and Governors Danny Concepcion, Marivic Españo, Tito Ortiz, and Saite Tanco. I would like to especially thank Governor Sai and past President Risa Mantaring for helping me and the MAP address national issues. The guidance of the board and their insights proved invaluable in helping me steer our beloved organization during this challenging period of our nation's history. I am very happy that I'm turning over the leadership of the MAP to Gigi Montenola. I've known and worked with Gigi for years. For one, President Gigi is our MAP Management Man of the Year 2012 awardee. Not many of you know, but I was the one who nominated him. Gigi served as President and CEO of the Bank of the Philippine Islands for 8 years and President of the Bankers Association of the Philippines for 4 years. President Gigi is an example of a Filipino professional manager who has an excellent track record of unblemished integrity, professional competence, and strong leadership qualities. Undoubtedly, with President Gigi at the helm, the MAP is in better hands, and we should have no doubt that our organization will soar to greater heights under his leadership. May I reiterate my request to all the members to support President Gigi and his administration with the same zeal as you have supported my presidency. Please help them in their programs and projects under the 2021 theme, The Great Reset, Leading for the Common Good. In closing, on behalf of the Board of Governors and the members of the MAP, let me thank Secretary and MAP member Sonny Dominguez for his continuing support to the organization, and more importantly, for your selfless dedication and hard work in helping the country weather the storm that has been battering it since last year. The country would not have achieved what it had been able to do under the pandemic without your able and firm stewardship of the economy. We in the Management Association of the Philippines are very proud of you. Again, thank you all, and may 2021 be a lot better for all of us. Mabuhay ang MAP. Maraming salamat sa inyong lahat.
Thank you, Francis. Let's give Francis a big round of applause for providing leadership to the MAP last year. We now proceed to the induction of the 2021 MAP Board of Governors. Let's start off. Also, may we request each governor to turn on their videos as his or her name is called. Let's start off with MAP President Gigi Montenola, Chair of Far Eastern University, or FEU. Next, we have MAP Vice President Noel Bonoan, Vice Chair and COO of KPMG RG Madabat and Company. Next, we have MAP Treasurer Marivic Españo, Chair and CEO of P&A Grant Thornton. Next up, we have MAP Assistant Treasurer, Romy Bernardo, Managing Director of Lazaro, Bernardo, Chu and Associates. Next, we have MAP Secretary, Maan Ontiveros, Managing Director of CEO Advisors, Inc. Next, we have MAP Governor, Danny Concepcion, President of the University of the Philippines, or UP. Next up, we have MAP Governor, Fred Pascual, Lead Independent Director of SM Investments Corporation. Next up, we have MAP Governor, Babe Singson, President and CEO of Meralco Power Gen Corporation. And lastly, MAP Governor, Wilson Tan, Chair and Country Managing Partner of SGV and Company. To lead the induction, the 2021 MAP Board of Governors, may we now call on our inducting officer, the Secretary of Finance, Secretary Carlos G. Dominguez.
Good afternoon. Please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, please state your name.
I,
Romeo Bernardo,
having been duly elected to the position of
Secretary
having been duly elected to the President Assistant Treasurer
of the Management Association of the Philippines,
of the
of the Management Association of the Philippines,
do hereby solemnly swear
hereby solemnly swear
that I will faithfully discharge to the best of my ability
that I will
faithfully discharge to the best of my ability
the duties of my present position
the duties
of my present position
and all others I may hereafter hold in the Management Association of the Philippines,
and
all others I may
hereafter
in the MAP,
Management Association of the Philippines,
that I will obey and defend the Constitution and bylaws of the Management Association of the Philippines.
I will obey
the Constitution and bylaws of the MAP,
the Management Association of the Philippines,
that I will dedicate myself to promote and uphold its ideals and objectives,
that I will dedicate myself to promote and uphold its
ideals and objectives,
that I impose this obligation upon myself voluntarily
and
that I impose this obligation on myself voluntarily
without mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
Without mental reservation or purpose of evasion.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations to all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Should I begin now?
Carol, you're on mute.
Great. We will now proceed to the recognition of the MAP President for 2020. May we now call on Attorney Francis Lim, please. May I now read to you the text of the Certificate of Appreciation to Attorney Francis Lim. The MEP presents this Certificate of Appreciation to Attorney Francis Lim in recognition of his outstanding leadership and exemplary performance, and in grateful appreciation of his deep sense of responsibility and dedication to his duties as MAP President in 2020. With total commitment and full reserve, he firmly led MAP in an extraordinary year of the COVID-19 pandemic and guided MAP in accomplishing its objectives consistent with MAP's 2020 theme, Lead for a Competitive Tomorrow. Because of his able and decisive leadership, he served as an inspiration to the governors, committee chairs, vice chairs, the membership, management, staff to address themselves fully to the needs of the MAP members and its constituents to measure up to the high standards of management and leadership for which the MAP has been established. Given during the 72nd MAP online inaugural meeting on January 12, 2021, signed Aurelio R. Montinola III, MAP President for 2021. To express MAP's sincere appreciation, let's all give Francis a big, big round of applause. At this point, we will now witness the virtual turnover of the symbol of the MAP presidency to inspire Mr. Montinola in pursuing MAP's vision of promoting management excellence for nation building. A round of applause, please, for our incoming and outgoing MAP presidents. At this point, the 2021 president of MAP will now deliver his inaugural address. A round of applause, please, for Mr. Gigi Montinola.
Our guest speaker and inducting officer, Secretary Carlos Sunny Dominguez, our distinguished guests from government, the diplomatic community, the academe and media, leaders of the various Philippine business groups and joint foreign chambers, MAP Management Man of the Year awardees, MAP past presidents and fellow MAP members, dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I am honored by the trust of the MAP membership, appreciative of your vote of confidence, and inspired by your continued commitment to MAP's mission of promoting management excellence for nation building. I wish to thank Attorney Francis Lim and his 2020 Board of Governors for an excellent job in a pandemic year. Let us all give Francis another warm round of applause, please. With the support of MAP's membership, we in the 2021 MAP Board of Governors commit to do our best to pursue MAP's mission, reinforce MAP's main goals, and build on MAP's previous accomplishments. But first, a look back at 2020. 2020 was unexpectedly a year of severe and multiple crises. We had and have a health crisis. The COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic hit the world and the Philippines like a giant sledgehammer. Global statistics show over 20 million cases, over 350,000 deaths, comparisons with the 1918 Spanish flu, and fears of a deadlier second wave. And December Philippine Department of Health statistics indicate 440,000 cases, a 93% recovery rate, a 5% active rate, or about 25,000 cases, and a 2% death rate, or about 9,244 deaths. Sadly, an ASEAN Post graph shows the Philippines as the second worst in Asia, with the dubious distinction of the longest lockdown in the world. Who would have thought that staying alive would be the best option in 2020? We had and have an economic crisis. Global source partners report a 10% drop in the first 3 quarters of 2020, and Oxford and Haver point to our worst recession ever. ASEAN analysts' GDP growth expectations for the Philippines went from one of the highest at the start of the year to the lowest in ASEAN by end year. Worse, The Economist, in its December 15 issue, opined that the Philippine economy will be, quote, the most vulnerable to COVID-19's long-term effects from 1919 to 2025, unquote. Fortunately, thanks to the able stewardship of Secretary Sonny Dominguez and Bangko Sentral Governor Ben Diokno, we remain financially strong as a country. In fact, in the papers today, Fitch Ratings reaffirms the Philippines investment grade rating of BBB with a stable outlook. Who would then have thought that EBITDA, earnings before interest, depreciation, and coronavirus, would become an appropriate accounting measurement in 2020? We had and have an environmental crisis. Cries for climate change have been upgraded to climate crisis and even climate emergency as we enter a critical decade to reverse carbon emission deterioration or face an unlivable planet. Unfortunately, the Philippines is ranked 3rd worldwide in disaster vulnerability, and the year-end floods of typhoons Rolly and Ulysses were living testaments to the effect of climate change on the country. Appropriately, the MAP selected Federico Piqui Lopez as its Management Man of the Year 2020 for his role as a clean energy champion. We had and have an education crisis. We are facing a learning crisis that threatens the growth trajectory of the nation. Pre-pandemic, our students were already falling behind in reading, math, science, and 21st century skills. 3 outside international assessors ranked us last. This is PISA 2018, 78 economies, TIMSS 2019, 64 economies, or bottom half, SEA PLM 2019, 6 participating ASEAN countries. What more in pandemic 2020, when schools were downgraded to remote learning, unequal Wi-Fi, and 2.7 million unenrolled students? We had and have a social justice crisis. The social weather stations reported that in a nationwide poll conducted from November 21 to 25, 48%, or 12 million families, rated themselves as poor, and another 36% rated themselves as borderline poor. Unfortunately, inequality reigns as the poor and the small businessmen have been hit hardest by the health, economic, environmental, education, and social justice crisis described earlier. Looking forward to 2021. Fortunately, our silver lining is that we have a strong and smoothly functioning Management Association of the Philippines board, committee chairs, and 1,000 plus members. MAP's 2020 board, led by the dynamic and articulate Attorney Francis Lim, had a superlative output-driven year. More activities, more members, more fundraising, more national issue statements, and more influence on the business and national community. Your 2021 board's mission and vision is to take this to the next level with a main theme of the Great Reset, leading for the common good. In keeping with the 5 crises mentioned earlier, our main thrusts will be to safely reopen the economy, ESG, environmental, social justice, and governance, and member benefits via best practice sharing. We have organized ourselves with 9 capable and dedicated governors handling 26 committees clustered into 3 main groups. Safely reopen the economy with 11 committees, shared prosperity and ESG with 3 committees, and internal member benefits with 12 committees. Our committee chairs are a carefully chosen mix of some experienced and some fresh thinking chairpersons who will lead for the common good. Before proceeding, allow me to introduce the current 2021 board that you members have elected to head the MAP in 2021. Attorney Noel Bonoan, Vice President. Vice Chair and COO of KPMG, RG Manabat & Co., and a former Department of Finance Undersecretary. Mrs. Marivic Españo, Treasurer, Chair and CEO of P&A Grant Thornton, and 2020 PICPA awardee. Mr. Romy Bernardo, Assistant Treasurer, Managing Director of Lazaro Bernardo Tew & Associates, and a former DOF Undersecretary. Ms. Maan Hontiveros, Secretary, Managing Director of CEO Advisors, Inc., and founding president and former CEO of Philippines Air Asia. Attorney Danicon Concepcion, Governor, President of the University of the Philippines and a former Assemblyman and Congressman. Mr. Fred Pascual, Governor, Lead Independent Director of SMIC and former UP President. Mr. Babe Singson, Governor, President CEO of Meralco Power Gen Corporation and former Department of Public Works and Highways Cabinet Secretary. Mr. Wilson Tan, Governor, Chair, Country Managing Partner of SGV & Co., and 2009 PICPA awardee. Mr. Gigi Montinola, President, Chair of Far Eastern University, and former President of the Bankers Association of the Philippines. As you can see, you have elected a proven representative set of the competence and track record of MAP members in general, and we governors hope that we will be able to live up to your expectations. 2021 activities will revolve around 12 monthly general membership meetings and 3 major conferences on diversity, the annual CEO conference, and next generation themes. As needed, national issue statements coordinated with former Presidents Francis Lim and Risa Mantaring, and where appropriate, co-signed with other business associations. Committee initiated education webinars to share best practices, and membership and fellowship events to encourage networking and camaraderie. We would like to start on time and keep all activities at 2 hours maximum. We foresee a first semester of mostly Zoom meetings, but hope to return to limited face-to-face events, particularly for the major conferences in the second half of the year. As always, our indefatigable Executive Director, Arnold Salvador, and his hardworking MAP Secretariat will be managing the logistics and communication for MAP events. Going to initial 2021 MAP policy directions. As we are eager to hear our guest speaker and inducting officer, allow me to close with a few initial thoughts on some policy prescriptions that we will push. Health is wealth, and we thank Secretary Dominguez and the government for significantly funding vaccinations for our frontliners and the less fortunate. To help our own members safely reopen their businesses and the economy, MAP itself will focus on how best to secure vaccines for its smaller member companies who are not included in the current government priority lists. We will also advocate public transportation that provides mobility that is essential for the economy and society to function properly and be productive. For economic, our main goal is to push for the passage of the CREATE bill, which will reduce corporate income tax to 20% for smaller businesses, establish a 10-year sunset period for specific incentive industries, and provide a much-needed 250 billion stimulus to safely reopen the economy. MAP is joining at least 30 business organizations in signing within this week the joint statement of support for CREATE and the joint letters to House Speaker Lord Alan Velasco and Senate President Vicente Soto, urging them to act quickly on the enactment of CREATE. For the medium term, we will push certain policy recommendation of an MAP, University of Asia and the Pacific study commissioned in 2020. In particular, we wish to promote ease of doing business, government digitization efforts, and improved public information, communication, and technology connectivity. For environment, we will work towards an appropriate policy prescription. MAP supports the development of a natural capital accounting bill to measure physical units of terrestrial and marine resources of the country, as well as 3 environmental projects in Occidental Mindoro, Laguna, and Batangas. We shall always also balance this with database analysis of our energy security and water security situation. For education, we will collaborate with PBED, Philippine Business for Education, to highlight the learning crisis that the Philippines is in today, particularly at a time of unequal access among our learners and the lack of a clear plan to bring our students back to school safely. If not urgently addressed, we may end up with a South African university message that closes with the sobering words, quote, "The collapse of education is the collapse of a nation," unquote. But most of all, we should push out of our comfort zone and pay equal attention to social justice issues and to lead for the common good. We need jobs. Wholesale and retail trade, agriculture and fisheries, and construction make up 50% of total jobs. and we have to revive and to reopen these sectors to alleviate poverty. We need food, particularly for the 48% self-perceived poor families, either through public sector Bayanihan Act stimulus programs for the poor or private sector revival of business, economic, and payroll activities that will generate income for everyone. We need values formation. We need to work on changing attitudes and behaviors of Filipino youth and the common man on the street in order to achieve a meaningful and sustainable change in society. In closing, I would like to appeal to the 1,000 plus strong MAP membership to support our board and to share member best practices to help each other and our national community. We are a vibrant, purposeful, and well-meaning national private sector association. And together, we can make a significant impact on the health, economic, environmental, education, and social justice front. We are also a constructive partner of government and a helpful supporter of value-adding non-governmental organization causes. Gloomy forecasts may pave the road ahead, but let's prove our critics wrong. And let's bet on ourselves, the MAP, and the country. Let's embrace the MAP 2021 theme of the Great Reset, leading for the common good. We need your collective wisdom and proven execution skills to help us to safely reopen the economy, to push ESG, environmental, social justice, and governance initiatives, and to generate member benefits through best practice sharing. Mabuhay ang Bayanihan MAP. Many thanks and good luck to all of us in 2021.
Thank you, Gigi, for that very inspiring speech, and you certainly have my support. Congratulations, and we look forward to working with you for 2021. So in line with the MAP policy, we will disperse with a lengthy introduction of our guest speaker today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our guest speaker, the Secretary of Finance, Secretary Carlos G. Dominguez.
Thank you very much. First of all, let me congratulate the outgoing President, Francis Lim, and the excellent board that he headed. Certainly, the government was very engaged with yourselves and really appreciated your support and your inputs into our policy making. I also wish to welcome and congratulate Gigi and the new board into the new board of the MAP. We certainly look forward to working with you in the very well-defined program that you put up, you spoke about, Gigi. Really, we have a lot of crisis, and I agree with you that education is probably one of the most serious crises that we face today. Thank you for that outline, and again, we look forward to working with Gigi and the entire. So, Mr. Aurelio Montinola III, President of the Management Association of the Philippines. officers and members of the MAP, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, friends in media, good afternoon. Again, let me congratulate the MAP's new set of Board of Governors inducted today. The new officers have the challenging task of continuing MAP's remarkable mission during these most difficult times. The year we just brought to a close was a punishing one. For nearly the whole of 2020, the government had to impose restrictions on movement to save lives from COVID-19 while building up our health system capacity. We prioritized the health and safety of our people above everything else. We were fully aware, however, that such a move would impose heavy costs on the government, on the economy, and on our people. When we restricted the economy in the second quarter of last year, GDP fell by 16.9% and the unemployment rate rose to 17.7%. The strict community quarantine measures cost the National Capital Region and its adjacent provinces some 2.1 billion pesos in wages every day. However, improvements were seen with the gradual easing of restrictions in the third quarter. We had a much slower GDP contraction of 11.5%. On a quarter-on-quarter basis, the economy actually grew by 8%. Unemployment rate also dropped quickly to 8.7%. Nevertheless, we were still losing 700 million pesos in wages each day in the NCR and nearby provinces due to the general community quarantine. We expect to see additional improvements in the last quarter of 2020 as we have been progressively reopening businesses and accessibility to mass transportation. We recognize and appreciate the business community for their resilience, cooperation, and support, especially in keeping our workers and the economy afloat during these challenging times. To be completely honest, some of the jobs lost may never return. The pandemic, however, provided us with the opportunity to accelerate our shift to digitalization in order to meet the demands of the new emerging economy. This will create new jobs that will require new skills. We recognize the need to pursue more policy reforms as we rebuild our domestic economy. The private sector plays a crucial role in this undertaking. The depth of the pandemic's economic impact must be matched with bold initiatives on the part of our enterprises and government. We need to reinvent ourselves in order to recover. Be assured that we will continue to consult and engage with you as we move to boldly reopen the economy as safely as we can. Over the past 10 months, the Duterte administration acted quickly to provide immediate relief to the most vulnerable sectors to rescue enterprises put under extreme distress. We responded not only to address the public health crisis, but also to contain the economic fallout caused by it. The government's direct response to the pandemic amounts to 2.66 trillion pesos or 14.7% of GDP. This includes the largest social protection program in history that provided emergency cash grants to low-income families and wage subsidies to workers in small businesses. We expanded medical resources to fight COVID-19 and ensured the safety of our frontliners. Fiscal and monetary actions were undertaken to keep the economy afloat and support recovery initiatives. Funds were made available to provide cash for work programs and assist affected industries. We infused additional capital into government financial institutions for them to lend more money to productive sectors of the economy. Philippine Guarantee Corporation expanded its coverage to encourage mobilization of private sector funds for housing. The corporation's facilities provided coverage against credit losses to home lending. With the sovereign guarantee that the corporation carries, loans are zero risk rated and therefore exempt from the provision of risk capital. Banks are also enjoying other benefits such as income tax incentives, exemptions from real estate loan lending limits, and capital relief. Notwithstanding investments made over the past few years in this sector, we continue to have a housing backlog of 1.2 million houses each year. In 2019, the outstanding guarantee of the corporation to 48 banks was 201 billion pesos, covering housing loans to 125,000 borrowers. These lending banks enjoy fiscal incentives amounting to 3 billion pesos. We urge banks to share the incentives granted to them by providing more loans to home buyers at lower rates. This should help create jobs in the construction sector. Funding our social protection and economic stimulus measures was a challenge. It was fortunate, however, that when COVID-19 struck, the Philippines was financially ready. We owe this in large part to President Duterte's prudent fiscal policy and political will to pursue reforms since the beginning of his term. Before the pandemic hit us, we were able to reduce our debt load to a historic low and boost revenue collections to levels we have not seen in more than 2 decades. We earned an unprecedented upgrade in our credit rating, which resulted in tighter spreads and concessional rates for our borrowings. Understandably, we expected our revenue collections last year to be lower than projected due to the slowdown of economic activity. Nonetheless, our solid financial footing allowed us to afford a responsible level of deficit spending to cover our COVID-19 response while continuing to implement the priority programs under the 2020 national budget. Despite the many populist excuses to blow up the deficit and bury future generations in debt, we chose to take the path of fiscal prudence. We did not abandon the judicious fiscal management set by President Duterte when he assumed office, which got us in our strong financial position ahead of the crisis. We had set our deficit spending in 2020 to reach 1.38 trillion pesos, or 7.6% of our GDP. This is more than double our pre-pandemic deficit to GDP ratio target of 3.2% and the 2019 level of 3.4%. Despite the large increase, we expect our deficit to GDP ratio to remain within the median of our neighbors and credit rating peers around the world. We have made sure that the size of our deficit still takes into consideration our adherence to long-term debt sustainability. Notwithstanding the challenging circumstances, we managed to collect revenues amounting to 2.8 trillion pesos in 2020. This is just 0.4% short of our total collection outlook for the year. However, this is lower by 9% from the 2019 level and by 19% from our original target before the crisis. Meanwhile, the government's total expenditure requirement last year reached 4.205 trillion pesos. This includes the spending mandated under Bayanihan 1 and 2, as well as the continuation of the key infrastructure projects we are banking on to support economic recovery. The total expenditure is 11% higher compared to the 2019 level. As of the end of 2020, our emerging deficit spending amounted to 1.36 trillion pesos, or equivalent to 7.5% of our projected GDP for the year. This is slightly below our target in 2020. Because none of the emergency spending for the health crisis was programmed, we needed to bridge the budget gap with additional borrowings. We projected our debt to GDP ratio to reach 53.5% in 2020 from our pre-pandemic target of 40.2% and 2019's historic low of 39.6%. Nevertheless, this level kept us well within the prescribed bounds of fiscal viability. Last year, our gross borrowings were programmed to increase to 3 trillion pesos. This is around double our pre-pandemic requirement and triple the 2019 level. We have set out a clear strategy for financing our deficit. We prioritize domestic borrowings, followed by official development assistance and in the international capital markets. We determined this plan as the most prudent approach, ensuring sustainability in our debt service. With our credit ratings at historic highs, we quickly accessed emergency financing from our development partners in commercial markets at very low rates, tight spreads, and longer repayment periods. Our average interest rate has gone down substantially from 5.5% in 2019 to 4.7% in November of 2020 for domestic debt, and from 4.4% to 3.2% for external debt. The total gross financing we raised last year amounted to 2.63 trillion pesos. This excludes the 540 billion peso emergency short-term loan from the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, which was already repaid in full in December and reavailed this month. Of the total borrowings, 1.91 trillion pesos, or 73%, was raised from domestic market. This includes 488 billion pesos obtained from our largest ever retail treasury bond issuance in August. The remaining 721.1 billion pesos in financing, or 27%, was sourced from our development partners in the global bond market. Program loans for budgetary support from multilateral and bilateral lending institutions, including emergency funding for the COVID-19 response, amounted to 369.7 billion pesos. Project loans secured for the continuation of our infrastructure modernization and other priority programs reached 33.3 billion pesos. Our issuance of euro and US dollar denominated bonds last year allowed us to raise 318.1 billion pesos more. The Philippines was among only a few emerging economies to have successfully tapped the global bond markets during the pandemic. At the height of the crisis, we entered twice with our 2.3 billion US dollar bond transaction in April and our 2.75 billion US dollar bond offering in December. In both issuances, we were able to achieve very low coupon rates as our issue spreads outperformed those of similarly rated emerging markets. The strong demand for Philippine credit in the international market reflects confidence in our economy to quickly transition from this abrupt downturn. We appreciate the importance of continuing fiscal discipline to ensure the resilience of our economy. The public health emergency could last for months or possibly years. The battle against COVID is going to be a marathon, not a sprint. While we hope for the best, we must be prepared for the worst. Let me assure you that the Duterte administration has ample ammunition to outlast this enemy. This year, the Philippines will maintain an elevated but manageable deficit program of 8.9% behind the need for strong government fiscal support in restarting the economy. Our gross borrowings will reach 3.03 trillion pesos in 2021, roughly equivalent to our funding outturn in 2020. We expect the national government's debt to settle at 57% of GDP this year. Even with the upscaling of our borrowing plan, we will still be able to keep our debt ratio within a sustainable threshold. This gives us the advantage over economies who were already saddled with heavy debt prior to the crisis. We remain confident that we can easily fulfill our funding requirement for this year. The large structural liquidity in our financial system will enable us to continue prioritizing domestic financing to mitigate the buildup of foreign exchange risks. The BSP's relaxation of reserve requirements further enhances the structural liquidity of our system. Should it become necessary, we also have the option of reaccessing the BSP's emergency lending facility due to the additional borrowing space granted by Bayanihan 2. As our sovereign credit rating performed better than our peers, we continue to have good access to external commercial borrowings and to official development assistance. In fact, Fitch Ratings recently kept the Philippines investment grade credit rating of BBB with a stable outlook. The credit rating agency believes that our fiscal situation is manageable despite the crisis. Fitch also cited favorable growth prospects for the country. This affirmation is recognition of the soundness of our COVID-19 response measures and our strong fundamentals going into the pandemic. By keeping our credit rating, the Philippines continues to stand out in the international financial community amid a wave of negative credit rating actions. Since last year, Fitch has downgraded ratings of 33 sovereigns. This includes countries that previously had the same rating as the Philippines, such as Colombia, Mexico, and Italy. The recent passage of the majority of our economic recovery bills bodes well for the economic prospects of our country. The 4.506 trillion peso 2021 national budget was already enacted into law. This, along with the extended validity of the Bayanihan 2 appropriations and the 2020 national budget, will provide us with sufficient means to hasten the recovery of our domestic economy. This year's budget will sustain and strengthen our efforts to bolster the healthcare system, ensure food security, invest in physical and digital infrastructure, and provide support for the most vulnerable and affected sectors of our society. Where we invest our people's money is important. The economic services sector, which includes the Build, Build, Build program, received the second highest allocation of the national budget. Increased spending on infrastructure has the largest multiplier effect on the economy and it immediately creates jobs, encourages investments, and spurs domestic demand. Meanwhile, FIST, or Financial Institutions Strategic Transfer Bill, has been ratified by both chambers of Congress and is on its way to the President for signature. FIST will allow banks to offload their souring loans and assets through asset management companies so that they could extend more credit to pandemic-hit businesses in need of assistance. This is an improved version of the special purpose vehicle law that was enacted in the early 2000s in response to the Asian financial crisis. The advantage this time is that we are acting much earlier, so banks can respond quickly to cushion the economic impact of COVID-19 and support our recovery. We expect both houses of Congress to swiftly ratify CREATE, or the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Act. CREATE is the largest stimulus package for private enterprises in our country's history. It will support the government's efforts to restore and create hundreds of thousands of jobs and keep our businesses operating. Create proposes more flexibility in granting fiscal and non-fiscal incentives, which will be critical as the Philippines competes internationally for high-value investments. Increased foreign investors will mean more job opportunities and economic progress for our country. We want to thank the MAP for its strong support of our program and especially for CREATE. We appreciate MAP's consistent support for CREATE. The association's voice holds weight among policymakers and the general public. It is an independent and enlightened voice that validates the timeliness and relevance of our policy measures. We are seeking your support for the guide bill for the government financial institutions United Initiatives for Distressed Enterprises for Economic Recovery. The measure proposes to form a special holding company to enable our government financial institutions to infuse equity under strict conditions to strategically important companies facing solvency issues. The government plans to invite multilateral agencies and other investment companies to participate in this joint venture. There are also many hopeful signs that our economy will quickly rebound beginning this year. Our international reserves have reached a historic high of $104 billion as of the end of November, equivalent to 11.2 months of worth of imports. The Philippine peso demonstrated strength and resilience throughout this most difficult period. Last year, it appreciated by 5.4% against the US dollar. This will strengthen our ability to import the goods that we need to support economic recovery. Our inflation rate remained low throughout the year and stood at 2.6%. This is well within our target band, 2 to 4%. We have managed to keep our COVID-19 infections moderate. We do not expect the sort of surges we now see in many countries. COVID-19 vaccine development is also making headway. Procuring and rolling out these life-saving doses will restore jobs and incomes of our people. The Department of Finance has secured the funding needed to inoculate a majority of Filipinos. Our first priority is to vaccinate our health frontliners and the operators of public utilities so that commuters will feel safe. This will allow us to reopen more of our economy. Among other priority sectors are the poor and vulnerable elderly citizens, so they will have less risk of getting infected. A safe and effective vaccine will no doubt be a game changer when it becomes available to us. Until then, we will continue in our evidence-based approach towards reopening the economy as safely as possible. It also remains essential for everyone to cooperate with government regulations and comply with minimum health standards. The Duterte administration is doing its utmost to avoid the costly reversal of our hard-fought gains in 2020 and the previous years. We will continue to exercise discipline and prudence in managing our fiscal affairs. This, I believe, is the key to a strong and sustainable recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Dominguez. And since this is inaugural meeting, we will not have Q&A. Let us thank Secretary Dominguez for sharing his time with us today through a round of applause.
Thank you. No, I don't mind if there's a Q&A, if you wish.
Do we have time? I think we have some time for a Q&A. Gigi, what's your decision? Would you like to have a Q&A?
Yes, yes, by all means. It's rare that we have the secretary with enough time to take care of all of us. I mean, he helps so many other people as well.
Great. So how about this? If you chat your questions, I will ask your question and the secretary will answer your question. Would you like to chat in your question? Alternatively, we could also, you could raise your hand and we can call you. Arnold, can we do that?
Yes.
So let's do it. Who would like to start? Maybe I can invite one of the MAP governors to ask secretary a question.
If there's no question, I think a lot of people are wondering whether we have enough money to inoculate the people. Okay, let's put it this way. We have 110 million Filipinos, right? Of the 110, around 40 million are below the ages of 18, and it is not recommended that teenagers and below get the vaccine. So you knock off 140 million out of 110. So that leaves you with 70 million Filipinos potentially to vaccinate. Now, the amount of money that we have raised so far, we have a total budget of 82.5 billion, but we have already in place 75 billion pesos. Now, 75 billion pesos, and I figure a conservative cost of inoculation per individual is going to be around 1,300 pesos. 1,150 for the vaccine itself, and around 200 pesos for the, the syringes, the information campaign, the monitoring, etc., getting rid of the waste, etc. So at 1,300 pesos per individual, you will be able to vaccinate around 57 million people out of the 70 million who are supposed to be vaccinated. Now that leaves you 13 million. Now we expect the 13 million to be covered by the LGUs, the private sector, and of course in there are the refusants, okay? The guys who don't believe in vaccination. So basically we are going to be covered, and I think we will be able easily now with the resources we have raised to vaccinate 60 million Filipinos.
So Secretary, as a follow-up question, somebody posted a question. Will the government have a coordinated vaccine procurement? It seems that there's no central procurement. And where are the funds for the vaccine that were being consolidated? And how will it be used?
The funds for the vaccine are 12.5 billion from the budget, right? And we have another, and that's already in the GAA. That's already budgeted. And we will borrow, as I said, at the moment, we have already lined up 62.5 billion pesos from ADB, AIIB, and World Bank. That's $1.3 billion. So that comes to 62.5 billion pesos. So that's our funding program.
Thank you. There's another question here. There was an article from Moody's saying that the Philippines is the last to recover in Asia. Would you like to comment on this article?
I don't know Moody's basis for that. They're entitled to their own opinion. So let's leave it at that.
Okay, does anyone else want to ask a question? May I invite one of the governors, or does anyone want to, raise your hand and we'll call you.
Besides, I want to point out, I don't know what the other recovery plans of the other countries are. I'm busy enough trying to work out our own. Okay, I'm not going to bother with Malaysia, Indonesia, and whatever. I'm sure they have more competent people than I am. So let's leave it to them.
Great. Here's another question. Congress has declared a climate emergency. Our new president, Gigi, and our new board also created a new communication to replace our Sustainable Development Committee to Climate Crisis. How is our 2021 national government budget responding to this potential next pandemic?
Well, I don't know if it was announced in the papers, but I am the chairman designate now of the Climate Change Commission. So that's another issue I am handling. And basically, I talked to the commission and I said, look, what have you guys done in the 11 years that you've been around? I don't think you've done much. Okay, so I gave them an assignment. I said, why don't we have something solid to achieve in this last 18 months? Why don't we pass legislation on single-use plastic? Let's limit, we don't have a lot of time left, okay? So let's limit our efforts to getting something important passed. And this is doable. Many legislators have filed bills, but they have gotten nowhere. So let's put our shoulder to the wheel and get this passed. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of opposition to it, but that's the fun of being in government, okay?
That's great. Another question here, which is not related to the COVID, but someone asked, do you support the current shot push in Congress, considering the timing?
I am for really opening up our economy in all areas possible, with the exception, I always put here, with the exception of land ownership, okay? The issue of land ownership is so emotional, and any mention of that will scupper the whole program. So let's do something doable. Let's open up the economy. Retail trade should be open. Things like the construction business should be open. There are loads of areas that need to be open. In fact, the other day, I just was talking to the Economic Development Council, and we were looking at, how many products we have that are subject to quotas. I just found out that we have a quota on importing goats. Now, how stupid is that? Okay? How stupid is a quota for importing goats? Isn't goat milk something good and something to be promoted? And yet, you have to go through this whole rigmarole with the Department of Agriculture to import a single goat. So I'm just pointing out the ridiculous things. But there are many other areas that need to be open. By the way, we just got the figures on the effects of the rice tariffication on rice production. Rice production actually went up. It's been the highest it's been ever. Of course, around four, I don't know how they calculate it, but around half of it is because of good weather, but the other half is because farmers have the funds which we gave them from the collection of the tariffs to invest in better production methods, and actually yields have gone up. So last night during the cabinet meeting, I said, this is another proof that actually economic theory works. Opening up the economy challenges the local production, and actually they respond positively if there is good support. I'm always surprised when you know, what I learned in Economics 101 works, okay, in real life. So, you know, this is the effect.
So, Secretary,
now, by the way, prices of rice, the price of rice has gone down by about 20%. And by the way, now you can go to the departments, you can go to the grocery store and buy any kind of rice you want. You want to buy the 37 peso variety, you can. 40 pesos, 50 pesos, 60 pesos, nicely packed. I don't think you saw that in 2018. So this is why I say we should look at the Constitution and open as much as possible.
Absolutely. Secretary, I have a personal question on opening up the economy. So like you, I'm a big proponent of opening up the economy. But my observation is most people still don't want to go out. So we're a predominantly consumer society, 70%, consumption to GDP. And yet people are scared to go out, to eat out. I keep encouraging people to, meet up, to go to restaurants, but nobody wants to go out. So how do we encourage people to go out and help build the economy, the great restart and, help this, right? Because I feel like unless we start going out and eating out and shopping, we can't really, start building this economy. What can we do to educate people to maybe manage risk? We know COVID is still there, but I think we should be managing our risks.
Well, I think one of the things the government was able to do is scare the bejesus out of people, okay?
Absolutely.
Now, in a way that worked early, so we have kept our death rate to nine deaths per 100,000. By the way, the death rate in Sweden is something like 90 per 100,000, okay? So, I mean, we were it depends on the society. What do you value? Okay, you value life, then you save it. Of course, there's a big sacrifice there. Now we are saying most likely this vaccine availability will give people the confidence of going out. Now, again, the surveys show that 47% are hesitant to take the vaccine. So we have to promote it. I think as soon as the vaccine becomes available, I think in February, there will be some available. And unfortunately, for some, it's going to be the Chinese vaccine, okay? So I know that some people don't like to take this type of vaccine, but if it works, it works.
Here are some other questions. Tax revenues of the government for 2021 is expected to go down. Add to this the impact if CREATE is passed. What is the plan of the government to address this?
Well, as I explained to Congress, okay, you can do two things to stimulate the economy, okay? You can collect the money and redistribute it. And you know how inefficient that can be. Why don't you just leave the money with the private sector? Maybe they know how to do it better. Why don't we trust them in this particular case? And anyway, we have to do it because our tax rate is the highest in Asia. So this is the time to do it. And leave the money with the people and let them decide how they are going to invest the money. Because I think the rational Filipinos are going to invest it in good business opportunities when they arise. So instead of collecting the money and then turning it over again in the meantime, with all the bureaucracy and the corruption and the what do they call it, the friction cost involved, I think it's worth it to drop our collection rate, right, rather than increase it and then redistribute it.
And when do you think you expect this to be passed?
What, CREATE?
The CREATE, yes.
When did I expect it to be passed? 2 years ago. It's there now, being discussed in the BICAM. So please, guys, your support is so important here. I mean, legislators have to understand that this is what the people want. Okay, it's not only the Department of Finance who wants this thing. I think it's good for everybody. And I want to thank Attorney Baladad for her wonderful article the other day. We should have more of those.
It's great. And then somebody also mentioned that government has funds to buy the vaccines for those who need it and want to be vaccinated. In the Senate hearing yesterday, Secretary Galvez also said the same thing. So does that mean that employees in the private sector will also be covered by government-procured vaccines?
Theoretically, yes, but there might be a timeline. I don't know exactly the results of the negotiations and the time lag. Now, some employers are going to be in a hurry, and yes, we can do a PPP together with them and buy the vaccine. I was talking to one of the businessmen this morning, and we were talking about Moderna vaccine. Moderna will not sell it to the individual companies. They will not, period. Okay? I don't know what the other guys will do, but Moderna will not. I think Pfizer will not. So, they want to insist, can the private sector buy? Of course they can buy. However, the pharma companies or some of the pharma companies are insisting that the government underwrite it. Not underwrite it in the sense that we will guarantee it, but we buy it together and it's done under our PO. It's been done. In fact, there's already vaccine coming in May. Isn't that right? Sometime in May. I think it's AstraZeneca vaccine.
Yes.
It's already been done. I don't know why people are discussing this thing. It's a waste of time.
On another subject, education. When do you think we will allow schools to open? We can have a balanced system in schools with hybrid learning. There are long-term consequences to keeping students away from developing their social skills with peers.
I don't know. Okay, I'm not the expert on when you want to open the schools. I look at my grandkids and I think they're not getting their money's worth. Okay, so I would much rather that they go to school. But if the health authorities say it's not safe, let's listen to them.
And then on another subject, will the Philippine finance system, accounting system adapt to the ESG accounting system, rewarding or giving incentives to those who have more sustainable business practices?
I don't understand the question.
I think the question is around will you have incentives if companies practice more sustainable ways like the ESG accounting? I think in the other countries, they're doing that already.
You mean, are you asking if we will require it? I don't know.
Give incentives to those who practice more
why is everybody looking for incentives? If it's a good thing, you do it yourself, okay? I was in the banana business before, okay? I was in the banking business. I don't know, but we never said, hey, I'm going to do this if you give me a tax break. God damn it, I'm sorry, but I don't know why everything now depends on whether or not we give you guys a tax break. Just do it yourself. If you're going to make money, do it. Nobody's stopping you. Why do you need an extra boost from us? I don't understand that. Okay? I mean, believe me, I was in the banana business. I was in the copper business. We didn't go to the government and say, hey, we're going to invest so much, but, give us a little tax boost. No, we calculated it and say, hey, we're going to make money. And by the way, if you give us an incentive, thank you. Okay? But we are not going to make our decision whether or not we get that incentive. I don't know, Gigi did that when he was lending money to when he was in BPI. He'll never lend a cent.
Absolutely.
Let's grow up. Too much dependence on government. Come on, guys.
On another subject, fishing. The Fisheries Code passed in 1998 gave DA through BFAR lawmaking powers. They've made the fishery sector, and in particular imports of fishery products, highly regulated in the name of protecting the fishermen. This has resulted in current prices of galunggong 180 wholesale and 389 in retail. A true result of intervening with natural forces of supply and demand. Can you please teach them the truths of free trade? So I guess someone's just making a comment and congratulating you. Somebody asked
again. These are items that maybe should be, these restrictions should be lifted. There are rules in the fishery. I just got involved recently in one of these fishery issues, and they say you cannot import fish if it's going to be sold in the wet market. What the heck? They can only import fish if it's going to be put in a can. Now, come on. What kind of nonsense is that?
And then somebody asked if it's possible to provide adequate financial support so PhilHealth can settle all its accountabilities to service providers, hospitals, and standalone facilities.
I don't know. It is a big problem, okay? It is a huge problem, the PhilHealth issue. There are many layers of that problem. And again, we are working hard to make sure that there's enough money for it. Unfortunately, there are elements in the private sector saying, oh, we don't want to pay the additional premium. Well, you don't pay the additional premium like in your insurance, then you don't get the additional service, do you? Now they're also making a move to stop the increase in contributions to the SSS. Really? Now, okay, so you put in less, then you're going to take out less. That's just the story. By the way, SSS is purely private money. There's no government money involved there. Now, you want to be insured? Yes, you pay. You want a higher payout? You put in more. There's no other way to do it sustainably.
Another question here or comment. Excellent presentation on performance given the situation. May we ask updated guide version? This is similar to bailout using private sector funds. How important to implement this, and which industries, businesses are we looking to prioritize?
When we looked at the crisis in the US in 2018, they had a fund from the Department of the Treasury that was utilized to bail out really systemically important companies. Okay, that's a reserve, that is an option. I think it would be good for us to have. There might be companies that are really going to be systemically important that are going to run into problems and may need bailout. Right now, we have no tools for that. Now, just thinking, maybe we should have those. Oh, by the way, this fish that we are passing that 1 year into the crisis, okay? In 1997, they took 5 years before they passed the fish. Now you can look at Bernardo there because he was there, I think, dragging his feet before it got passed, okay? I'm only kidding.
I wasn't there. I wasn't there. But I was already in Gigi's board at that time, lobbying for the passage. Thank you, sir.
Okay. So hopefully this piece will get done quickly. That's more important, really, to give the banks the option to offload their bad assets.
So here's another question, follow-up. While opening of the economy is a good thing, isn't it risky to amend the charter 15 months before the elections, considering of suspicious that lawmakers are out to extend their term?
I don't know. I really don't know. I say, you ask me, should we open it? I think we should open it. I think we should focus on the economic issues. We should open our economy more. Now, if there are people who want to discuss the other stuff, the political stuff to keep themselves in power, I think the public will will react to that if they don't like it.
And then a couple more questions. What is required for the Senate to approve PSA amendments?
What?
What is required for the Senate to approve the PSA amendments?
What's that? I don't know. What is PSA?
The Public Service Act, Mr. Secretary. The one that would redefine public utility broadly.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
No, I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. I'll ask one of my smart people here. Maybe they'll tell me in 10 minutes.
And then, will the Philippines be asked to join the CPTPP?
TPP? Are you talking about TPP?
CPTPP, yes.
What's that?
CPTPP.
The one that the Americans,
I think so, yes.
Got out of. You know, at this point in time, if the second or biggest or second largest economy in the world is not going to participate, what the heck is so important for us to participate? You know, let's be practical. The RCEP took 9 years, okay? Finally, we have it, okay? It's good. You know, people are asking me, you know, what advantage we will get. Again, it's opening economies to each other. That's always good, okay? Whether it's going to have an immediate impact because of the COVID, I don't know. It probably won't. But, you know, opening up world trade is, of course, very, very good. And I hope that, by the way, I hope that these trade issues between US and China can get resolved because it's dampening international trade. And that's not good for us.
So one last question, because your staff said you have another meeting. What will happen?
Lunch, okay?
What will happen to the modernization of NAIA?
Okay, when NAIA came out, when we, there was a private sector offer to do it, okay? So we told them, okay, these are the rules now, okay? We want to reduce our contingent liability, okay? Now, so this is the rules according to the law, okay? And they looked at it and wasted almost 2.5 years looking at it and finally say, oh, because of COVID, we don't want it anymore. Okay, so another group came in and said they want to do it. Unfortunately, the law requires you to have a certain amount of capital and they don't have it. And the only thing we have seen so far is press releases that they have the capital, but we haven't seen it in actuality. So what is the private sector doing? They want to do or they don't want to do? You make up your mind, because if not, NAIA will do it itself. It may not be as good as the plans of the private sector, but their plans, they cannot be implemented anyway. So what's the point of discussing that? Let's do something that we can do. And NAIA is prepared to do it.
That's great.
So to tell the private sector, okay? You know, how long did you guys take to do CALAX? You know how long? Babe is there. Huh? 5 years. Diba, babe?
Correct, Mr. Secretary, yes.
5 years. Why? They sued each other. They sued each other.
They stopped the bidding.
Exactly. Now, who stopped that? The government? No. Who wasted 2.5 years? The government? No, we said this is the deal. Now, you want us to bend over each time? We're not gonna do it. Okay, at least this administration isn't gonna do it. I am at the moment asking the PPP to put together our total. By the way, this year I made it by project, okay, to look at all our contingent liabilities. Okay, so one is PPP. I am also going to look at the contingent liabilities of SSS, GSIS, and PhilHealth. Because by the way, they have not been following the prescribed standards in accounting. A very simple thing is like this, okay? SSS recognizes as income all their collections. They do not set aside a reserve for future liabilities. No insurance company does that in the world. When I saw that, I became chairman of SSS. When I saw that, my God, is this the way to do it? And then finally I said, maybe GSIS is doing it. GSIS is not doing it. So you will be shocked sometime this year when we publish the 2020 financial statements of this organization. I am here now trying to give everybody, the public, a good view of what our real liabilities are so that our decision making is done on facts. And also that also does PPP. Now, we don't have the final number for our liabilities of the PPP, but they are pretty huge. At least when I leave office, I can tell my successor, hey, this is the picture, this is the real picture of the economy you are going to be helping to manage.
Great. So on that, we want to thank Secretary Dominguez for sharing his insights, his time, his frankness, and his candor. And let's give him a big round of applause.
Thank you. For this opportunity, and good luck to Gigi and the new board.
Yes, thank you very much, Secretary San. You really highlighted lots of questions that people wanted to ask, but in other forums. So it's good, and it's a good start. And I think really all of us can work together to move forward this year. And as we earlier said, there are many things that we can do together. So good luck. Have a good lunch.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Seksani.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
So at this point, I want to thank everyone for joining us this afternoon. I'm sure we're all looking forward to a brighter 2021. But we should all remember what Winston Churchill said. He said that a crisis is a terrible thing to waste. So let us all embrace the opportunities that 2021 has to offer and support the new MAP board. This MAP inaugural meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah, thank you, everyone.
Well done, Carol.
Thank you.
Great job, Carol.
On the fly.
Better that way. We all work well on the fly.
Congratulations,
Congrats,
Carol.
everybody.
Congratulations, everyone.
Good luck.
Congrats, everyone.
Thank you. Good luck. Good luck.
Congrats, everyone.
Thank you, Francis. Again.
Great talk, Gigi. Congrats.
Congrats.
Congrats, Francis, Gigi.
Bye, guys.
Okay.